Okay, the continuation where we were at. We were talking about as they walked, something thrashed in the walnut tree above them. Matt whistled and pointed. "Look at that! The biggest crow I've ever seen." Elena looked, but it was already gone. School that day was merely a convenient place for Elena to review her plan. She had woken up this morning knowing what to do, and today she gathered as much information as she could on the subject of Stephen Salvatore, which wasn't hard, because everyone at Robert E. Lee was talking about him. It was common knowledge that he some sort of run-in with the admissions secretary yesterday, and today he'd been called to the principal's office. Something about his papers, but the principal hadn't sent him back to class after it was rumored a long-distance call to Rome, or was it Washington? Everything seemed to be settled now, officially at least. When Elena arrived for Euro history class that afternoon, she was greeted by a low whistle in the hall. Dick Carter and Tyler Smallwood were loitering there. A couple of prize jerks, she thought, ignoring the whistle and their staring. They thought being tackle and safety on the varsity football team made them hot stuff. She kept an eye on them as she loitered in the corridor herself, refreshing her lipstick and fiddling with her compact. She'd given Bonnie her special instructions, and the plan was ready to be put into effect as soon as Stephen showed up. The compact mirror gave her a wonderful view of the hall behind her. Still, she missed him coming somehow. He was beside her suddenly, and she snapped the compacts shut as he passed. She meant to stop him, but something happened before she could. Stephen sensed, or at least there was something about him that seemed wary all at once. Just then Dick and Tyler stepped in front of the door to the history classroom, blocking the way. World-class jerks, thought Elena, fuming. She glared at them over Stephen's shoulder. They were enjoying the game, slouching in the doorway, pretending they were completely blind to Stephen standing there. "Excuse me." It was the same tone he used with the history teacher, quiet and detached. Dick and Tyler looked at each other, then all around, as if hearing spirit voices. "Scusi," Tyler said in a falsetto. "Scusi me, jacuzzi." They both laughed. Elena watched muscles tighten under the t-shirt in front of her. This was completely unfair. They were both taller than Stephen, and Tyler was about twice as broad. "Is there a problem here?" Elena was as startled as the boys were at the new voice behind her. She turned to see Matt. His blue eyes were hard. Elena bit her lips on a smile as Tyler and Dick moved slowly, presently out of the way. Good old Matt, she thought, but now good old Matt was walking into class beside Stephen, and she was left following them, staring at the backs of two shirts. When they sat down, she slid into the desk behind Stephen, where she could watch him without being watched herself. Her plan would have to wait until after class. Matt was rattling change in his pocket, which meant he wanted to say something. Hey," he began at last uncomfortably. "Those guys, you know." Stephen laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Who am I to judge?" There was more emotion in his voice than Elena had ever heard before, even when he had spoken to Mr. Tanner, and that emotion was raw and unhappiness. "Anyway, why should I be welcome here?" he finished, almost to himself. "Why shouldn't you be?" Matt had been staring at Stephen. Now his jaw squared with decision. "Listen," he said, "you were talking about football yesterday. Well, our star wide receiver tore a ligament yesterday afternoon, and we need a replacement. Tryouts are this afternoon. What do you think?" "Me?" Stephen sounded caught off guard. "Oh, I don't know if I could. Can you run?" "Can't." Stephen half turned toward Matt and Elena. Could see a faint smile curve his lips. "Yes." Can you catch? Yes. That's all a wide receiver has to do. I'm the quarterback. If you can catch what I throw and run with it, you can play. I see. Stefan was actually almost smiling, and though Matt's mouth was serious and his blue eyes were dancing, astonished at herself, Elena realized she was jealous. There was a warmth between the two boys that shut her out completely. But the next instant, Stefan's smile disappeared. He said distantly, "Thank you, but no, I have other commitments." At that moment, Bonnie and Caroline arrived and class started. Throughout Tanner's lecture on Europe, Elena repeated to herself, "Hello, I'm Elena Gilbert. I'm on the Senior Welcoming Committee, and I've been assigned to show you around the school. Now, you wouldn't want to get me in trouble, would you? By not letting me do my job?" That last with wide, wistful eyes, but only if he looked like he might try to get out of it. It was virtually foolproof. He was a sucker for maidens who needed to be rescued. Halfway through class, the girl sitting to her right paused for her a note. Elena opened it and recognized Bonnie's round, childish handwriting. It read, "I kept C away for as long as I could. What happened? Did it work?" Well, I guess she's talking about Caroline. Elena looked up to see Bonnie twisted around in her front row seat. Elena pointed to the note and shook her head, mouthing, "After class." It seemed a century until Tanner gave some last-minute instructions about oral reports and dismissed them. Then everybody sprang up at once. "Here goes," thought Elena, and with her heart pounding, she stepped squarely into Stefan's path, blocking the aisle so that he couldn't get around her. Just like Dick and Tyler, she thought, feeling a hysterical urge to giggle. She looked up and found her eyes exactly on a level with his mouth. Her mind went blank. What was it she was supposed to say? She opened her mouth and somehow the words she'd been practicing came tumbling out. "Hi, I'm Elena Gilbert, and I'm on the Senior Welcoming Committee, and I've been assigned." "I'm sorry, I don't have time." For a minute, she couldn't believe he was speaking, that he wasn't even going to give her a chance to finish. Her mouth went right on with the speech. "To show you around the school." "I'm sorry, I can't. I have to get to football tryouts." Stefan turned to Matt, who was standing by looking amazed. "You said they were right after school, didn't you?" "Yes," Matt said slowly, "but..." "Then I better get moving. Maybe you could show me the way." Matt looked helplessly at Elena, then shrugged. "Well, sure, come on." He glanced back once as they left. Stefan didn't. Elena found herself looking around at a circle of interested observers, including Caroline, who was openly smirking. Elena felt a numbness in her body and a fullness in her throat. She couldn't stand to be here for one more second. She turned and walked as quickly as she could from the room. And that's the end of the third one. I'm getting ready to go on to the fourth one soon.